All right. Hope everybody out there is doing as wonderful as you have the potential to do, being a unique personality in the universe, and also indwelt by a fragment of divinity, an eternal fragment. That's not my faith or belief. I can undoubtedly tell you that that is the reality. And you can start off on the faith walk yourself, but then you can undoubtedly know that just as sure as you know anything, and perhaps even more sure than you know anything, because that ultimately is reality, folks. We are diving into the Urantia book today, and I was watching a interesting talk on YouTube about LSD, and they were saying how the understanding is that there's this serotonin type of link up that happens, and because of that, they can see LSD as potentially being something that will be able to help people get over things like alcohol or depression. And these people are very, very bright individuals, and they're very scientifically smart, way beyond, they're much brighter than I am in that regards. But one thing that I will note is that their mind is so conditioned to not be receptive towards something that can just totally take them years and years and years in advance of all of their studies. They are going to plow through and struggle through and make the mistakes, going two steps forward, one step back, and so forth and so on. Revelation is different than that. Revelation is literally just giving you, like, it's unearned knowledge. Okay, so that's what we have before us here. So the unearned knowledge, the here's the deal. The problem with that, if you're going through that, then you're looking at that molecule then as an answer, and you're saying that we can, why wouldn't you begin to worship it in a way? Why don't you begin to not be able to have the proper value structure around it to put into its place? And we see that happen time and time again, where people literally create this religion around LSD, this psychedelic religion, and they've been doing it for thousands of years. If you look at your shamanisms, they've been using DMT for thousands of years. And now in our modern day new age, we have this synthesis. It's a psychedelic mysticism, okay? And that is a religion, okay? Because they can't understand. They can understand the scientific perspective of it, the serotonin link up and all that type of stuff. But then they say, well, why do some people see jaguars and this person sees cartoons? You know, is that based on their culture? There's such a subjective aspect to it. And then some people take it and it completely just totally makes them um, have a terrible insanity experience. Okay, so what would be the one size fits all would be the strength of character, self control, self restraint, and self discipline in order to unwind from that alcohol addiction. So you're utilizing your free will and you're accessing God, the creator of all of these molecules, as your source of power. And yes, it does take a leap of faith, but once you do, you can undoubtedly have that knowing understanding that it is a reality. And and there's no downside to that reality. Okay, the other one. Now, this isn't to say that any sort of substance needs to be cast out of our society for any drug needs to be cast out of our society for from now until the end of time because drugs are bad or drugs are wrong. We don't have to look at things like right and wrong. We can look at it as this is what it is. It's the misuse and abuse of it. It's the not understanding of it and putting it in the full perspective of it. So if somebody needs a little bit of space to unwind from a very complex society, and it's hard for them to utilize the self control and self restraint, then they can temporarily use something like an antidepressant to give them the space to then embark on the holistic measures like lifestyle change in order to permanently unwind from those types of habits. And they're utilizing self control and self restraint in the meantime. And then they're not drug dependent at the end of it because they said, well, I have got I've got it down now. You know, I got this thing. So we can look at what that stretch of time is from somebody beginning to have that understanding and evaluating the past and present and then and calling that some sense of wisdom. Okay, wisdom is the adaptation and application of that which you do know. So we're looking at supreme and ultimate time and space, and we're going to learn quite a bit here about time and eternity. So page 1295 in the Urantia book. And then once you read this, you'll say, these people have this understanding, but they're really just falling short. And to me, it almost seems like this childish dance that they're doing when they're trying to it's like a man trying to understand something that pure man alone can't understand. You need to access. Remember, um, man is a creature created by a creator, and he is meant to have a relationship with that creator. You can't circumvent that. You can't undo it. You're going to hit a brick wall, and it could be as destructive. Eventually, it's going to be destructive, because as we said before, inherent in every evil is the seed of its own destruction. So, non-action is evil. Non-alignment with reality, which is deity and divinity, is going to end up to be evil because it's not real. Okay, um, it's maybe it's a relative reality, but it's going to end up. You're going to have to replace something in that whole. And if it isn't deity and divinity, it's going to have to increasingly be more and more self deception in order to make your worldview do the mental gymnastics to fit into place. So that's what we're seeing in the planet. In the planet, they have to rule more. They have to have more and more billions. They have to now make AI into the next phase of our evolution in order for you have to keep pressing it and pressing it and pressing it. If you are an atheist person who says that AI can't be the next stage of our evolution, then you're really not an atheist person. You're really not a mechanistic mind. You really actually have some sort of a spiritual philosophy. Because what would be the difference if AI was the next phase of our evolution? I mean, that's how evolution works, right? The strong takes over the others, and then it dominates, and then it's the more favorable strain. It can reproduce more, and so they could make Terminator scenario. So they have to push that, and if they don't, then they're really not even following their own philosophy. And then if you look at the ones that are, like your Peter Thiels and so forth, they're pushing that to they're gonna they have to, or else their mind is gonna collapse. They realize that they've been all maybe they've been right about various science, but they've been all wet philosophically and spiritually blind. And so they're not. And again, I want to always point this out. When we look at that, people boo the AI guys we see on the graduation ceremonies. They boo the tech CEOs and everything. Remember, we can't have hatred towards any of these misguided souls. The worst insult that I would like to put upon one of them is that they're simply a lost soul. It's not even an insult, but you can say they're a badly wounded lost soul as well. Maybe even the worst wounded people on the planet, which drives them to be the ones with their finger on the nuclear button. So that's off because we don't want to have hatred towards it. We don't want to condemn their souls. We can't. We're not even in the position to. So that goes with anybody. That goes with even your common criminal. And it goes with these people who are, massive, massive, massive war criminals. They're badly wounded, lost souls. And we can have love towards them, and hopefully they see the light. Hopefully, maybe they'll blow up a planet, and then they'll get on the other side and be like, oh, wow, I guess I did mess up. And God allows a being to blow up a planet, I think, because the Reentry book points out that worlds do collapse. And systems run down. So because of that line, it makes me think maybe it's possible that the gods will literally allow a being to wipe out the planet, but they also have things put in place to transport the stage of evolutionary life to another ready-made world so that they're not eliminating the strain of life. But that person's going to, resurrect and then think twice about how stupid they were to blow up that planet. And it might change their soul, because if there's more planets to be made, but there's only one of that person's soul. So that's why the divinity and all their wisdom lets these things unfold and take place. Your Hitlers, or you're dropping the atom bomb. Who was that, Truman? I don't know. These people are freaking insane, but badly wounded lost souls. I gotta catch myself. Okay, time and eternity, and insane. It is okay to say that they're mentally insane. And we have our own. Remember, when pointing out the flaws of the world, we need point no further than our own noses, because we do have our own insanities. What am I insane about? You know, there's various levels of it, but then we can say, we can prove that. And how do we improve that? Let's look at this. Time and eternity. It is helpful to man's cosmic orientation to attain all possible comprehension of deity's relation to the cosmos. So you can orient yourself in the cosmos if you understand. You need to remember, creature created by a creator. We need to have a stable point in the universe. What is your stable point if you don't have God? Is it what you saw on an LSD trip where the next day you're going to see the opposite? Is it technology where in the next day it's all going to, collapse, or you could blow up the world and then all the technology's gone? You have to have that stable center of the cosmos in order to have any sort of objectivity, folks. It's the ultimate in objectivity. While absolute deity is eternal in nature, the gods are related to time as an experience in eternity. In the evolutionary universe, eternity is temporal, everlastingly. Let me say that again. In the evolutionary universe, eternity is temporal everlastingness, the everlasting now, which is so amazing because it's saying here, that's in the evolutionary universe. This is what we're experiencing here, okay? In the evolutionary universe where we are, eternity is temporal everlastingness. So that means a temporal meaning fleeting. The everlasting now. And that's what the now is. This explains this in such a perfect way. And it goes into your Zen sort of understanding of the now. The now is the perfect example of temporal everlastingness. It's always there, but it's always fleeting, right? Because each now changes. And that's why you have to do meditation in order to keep refreshing that and not get dwelling in your past or future. The personality of the mortal creature may eternalize by self-identification with the indwelling spirit through the technique of choosing to do the will of the Father. So again, you are going to eternalize. This is how you're then taking those. You're not just a 100-year-old organism that's going to die. You're going to go beyond that, and that's spiritual. And you can try to solve that a million different ways, or try to think around that a million ways, or try to avoid that a million different ways. But you can never do it. You can delay, but delay is not avoidance. It is merely delay. Such a consecration of will is tantamount to the realization of eternity, reality of purpose. Consecration of will, not taking a substance in order to do it. Okay? That you have to earn it. You have to do it, because then you're permanently acquired of it. Or else, if not, then you'll be an addict. This means that the purpose of the creature has become fixed with regard to the succession of moments. Stated otherwise, that the succession of moments will witness no change in creature purpose. A million or a billion moments makes no difference, people. Now, it's tough to make the right choice right now because we're unwinding from a sick world who we've been programmed from birth to make these terrible choices. And so it seems challenging because we're trying to undo the momentum of what they call generational trauma. This is going back 500,000 years. And we're trying to undo that momentum. So it seems like, but once you have it locked in, you don't need to constantly be, oh, I need to make the right choice. Oh, I got to use my willpower. It just becomes a way of life for you. And it's eternal then now, okay? The new, you're always choosing correct. So the succession of moments, you're just always perfected at that point. But, it takes a long time it takes whatever time you want it to take. I'll put it that way. Stated otherwise, number has ceased to have a meaning with regard to creature purpose. Thus does creature's choice plus God's choice eventuate in the eternal realities of the never-ending union of the Spirit of God and the nature of man in the everlasting service of the children of God and of their paradise Father. So it's really, you have to understand that we're all trying to do this, okay? This is the whole, you can't just, I think a lot of times people want to just have the relationship between them and God. But remember, there's the brother and sisterhood. That's such a key component of that basis. So that's how you union. Okay, you're merging with reality there at that point. You're allowing you're using what you have, your choice, your own free will choice. So it's not coercion in order to do that. But there is a direct relationship between maturity and the unit of time consciousness in any given intellect. Now that's just really key because you can evaluate somebody to see how mature they are based on how conscious of time they are, the unit of time. If they're only conscious with 2 moments, they could be a baby. And then as they become more, they're like, oh, the last time I did that, I got hurt. And more and more and more and more and more. The time unit may be a day, a year, or a longer period, but inevitably it is the criterion by which these consciousness self-evaluates the circumstances of life and by which the conceiving intellect measures and evaluates the fact of temporal existence. So that's how you measure and evaluate, okay? Because if you had now a year, oh, geez, what if you had beyond a year? What if you were absolutely assured that you're going to be waking up on the other side of your death or your translation, if you choose to go that route, and you are evaluating this life? And they say, play the videotape, and people say, I was a good Christian, I went to church, and I did this, and play the videotape. They'll roll the tape, and then you'll see what, and again, there's so much mercy there that, you don't have to do this out of a fear-based thing, but then you'll want to just advance because it's not, the mercy is going to be there. So even if your tape is bad, you don't have to, repent or anything. I don't repent. You just brush it off your shoulder, okay? That was the dead past. Here we go. It's a learning experience. That's what it is, a learning. If you learn from it, brush it off your shoulder. No need to, do 50 Hail Marys or something. If that's even, now I can't remember if that's a football pass or a prayer now. That's how, that's what our society has done. Okay, experience, wisdom, and judgment are the concomitants of the lengthening of the time unit in mortal experience. Experience, wisdom, and judgment. I believe that probably means catalyst or something. As the human mind reckons backward into the past, it is evaluating past experience for the purpose of bringing it to bear on a present situation. As mind reaches out into the future, it is attempting to evaluate the future significance of possible action. And having thus reckoned with both experience and wisdom, the human will exercise judgment decision in the present, and the plan of action thus born of the past and the future becomes existent. Okay, so you're making a great plan there based on wisdom and judgment. In the maturity of the developing self, the past and future are brought together to illuminate the true meaning of the present. Now the present becomes so much more significant here, folks, and we'll see how significant it is. As the self matures, it reaches further and further back into the past for experience, while its wisdom forecasts penetrate deeper and deeper into the unknown future. And as conceiving self extends this reach even further into both past and future, so does judgment become less and less dependent on the momentary present. Okay, so you're actually done being anchored at that point. In this way, does decision action begin to escape from the fetters of the moving present, while it begins to take on the aspects of past future significance. So look at how they're merging these sort of things, okay? This past future significance, and where is it happening, folks? Now. Patience is exercised by those mortals whose time units are short. True maturity, transcends patience by a forbearance born of a real understanding. This is so key. Eventually, patience, that shouldn't exist. Patience is something for people who are, in time. If you don't have a sense, if you're always going to make the good choice, then the time unit goes away. It becomes eternal then at that point, in that moment only, though. It has to occur in that moment. And so then it's always just a series of moments. And so, okay, that's a forbearance. So a good way, I heard a good line, which was patience, tolerance, and forbearance are good qualities that we must have. But in this world, they're simply not enough. We need to go to the next level, which is transcendence, okay? And that's that real understanding. You can't have that patience. You have to transcend it. It's not enough in this planet to just be patient, okay? So you're trying to go beyond patience. But remember, moment by moment, step by step. To become mature is to live more intensely in the present, at the same time escaping from the limitations of the present. Okay, seems like a paradox, but what are you escaping from? Well, let's see. The plans of maturity founded on past experience are coming into being in the present in such a manner as to enhance the values of the future. So this is growth here, right? That's how you escape the limitations of the present. Part of your eternity is growth. And so if you don't have it all, you're still in the right place. You're exactly where you're enlightened, okay? And I'll give a shout out to Billy, a great student of the Urantia book, because he may just be my future self. The time unit of immaturity concentrates meaning value into the present moment in such a way as to divorce the present of its true relationship to the not present, the past future. Let's read that again. The time unit of immaturity concentrate meaning value into the present moment in such a way as to divorce the present of its true relationship. So again, this is such a great line, because people say, hey, live in the present. That just means I can just, not have any family responsibilities and just always be out there wild and high and stuff. But that's immaturity, because you're divorcing the present of its relationship to the not present, okay? The past future. The time unit of maturity. So you remember, the present contains the past future. We'll see. The time unit of maturity is proportion, so to reveal the coordinate relationship of the past, present, future, that the self begins to gain insight into the wholeness of events, begins to view the landscape of time from the panoramic perspective of broadened horizons, begins perhaps to suspect the non-beginning, non-ending eternal continuum, the fragments of which are called time. Wow, that's such a beautiful way. And remember, the Zen people understand that. Okay? So you can experience this. This isn't a head trip. You can literally experience this, and it's impossible not to experience it if you commit yourself to having, a control of mind rather than just vegging out to the tube. You will. It's impossible not to. Okay? So that's why they all conclude this type of understanding that there's some way to transcend time on the human level. But they don't put the God there because they're missing the other aspect of it. And it's difficult, when you're at their level, which is very, very advanced, these Zen masters, it's difficult to put the God into it, because it's almost like you have to snap out of that moment in order to have faith and belief. But then at a certain point, like, you do have to have a self-introspection to say, why is this happening? Okay, and they're not, or why or how is this happening? And only when you put in a conscious creator can you just very easily say, yeah, that's why this is a conscious creation, people, for you to have the ability to transcend time. And then you'll eventually hit the wall because you're going to eventually have to self-evaluate if you're a Zen person, say, why and how is this happening? You can be so in the moment, but then the moment becoming is a drug. If you're so addicted to the moment, it's like, I cannot step out of my sense of bliss in order to contemplate why I'm having bliss. You're going to be addicted to it. But you can have both. Okay, so that's what this book is doing. It's synthesizing the reality of this time transcendence that human beings can experience with the understanding that it requires that partnership. Okay, so now what we'll see, because this explains it. Panoramic perspective of broadened horizons begins perhaps to suspect the non-beginning. Okay, so now you're really getting a sense of this eternal continuum. Okay, on the levels of the infinite and the absolute. Now we're talking way beyond, way beyond. The moment of the present contains all of the past as well as all of the future. Now this is God consciousness right here, people. God is time. God is infinitely more than time, but why God doesn't have time because God is time. So the past and the future there, it's all unified with the eternal now. I am, this is the philosophic, they call it a philosophic concession for God. It's like they have to concede in order to put the I am into a concept, you're conceding something because it's beyond concept. So when you see that capitalized I am, that's what that is. I am signifies also I was and I will be. They're all contained within I am. And this represents our best concept of eternity and the eternal. Okay, so it's an I am is also on the absolute and eternal level. Potential reality is just as meaningful as actual reality. So those potentials, now this is great. Only the finite level into time-bound creatures does there appear to be such a vast difference. Where our actual self, our potential self, otherwise known as our future self, seems like it's distant, but to God, it's not. To God is absolute. An ascending mortal who has made the eternal decision is already a paradise finaliter. You already are your future self right now. And that's the sigh of relief. You're right where you need to be because you are an ascending mortal. You've made the eternal decision that you want to be spiritual and you want to ascend. So where you are in your thing, you're already there. Okay. But the universal Father, through the indwelling thought adjuster, is not thus limited in awareness, but can also know of and participate in every temporal struggle with the problems of the creature ascent from animal-like to God-like levels of existence. So you are, it's God isn't just this pure unparticipating harmony that isn't aware that you're still grappling with these things. So you really have a partner in your fragment of divinity here. That's thought adjuster dwelling within you. That's the fragment of divinity. That's why that's capitalized there. And so, God knows that you're already there because you've made the choice that you want to be there. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to act as you're already there. You're still going to need to go through the process and go through the motions because you want to. You need that acquirement. Remember, the future self, you, has such an acquirement as well. So it's really weaving this continuum of breaking down time and our understanding and our relationship of it, while still not completely going into abstraction and saying that it's not something, we can just completely dwell on that. Remember service, those sort of things. If you just completely try to master your own relationship to time, then again, that can be an abstraction. You could need to go into the cave and not do service to your fellow human. The real goal, the real ultimate in self-control is to not do it in the cave and to do it while you're at your job doing whatever, mundane task that is part of this reality. But while you're doing that mundane task, breathe a sigh of relief because you really are on your path to enlightenment on one sense while simultaneously being your past self and your future self. All right, folks, Urantia book. Check it out. Got to read it. And carry on and on and on into eternity, because that's